On Tomorrow's World Today, we explore the cutting-edge advances that are shaping 4 different worlds. The world of inspiration, where the wonders of the natural world amaze and inspire us. The world of creation, where ideas come to life from traditional arts. The world of innovation, where ideas and inventions move us all forward. The world of production, where innovations are mass-produced to improve our lives. From Inventionland World Headquarters, here's your host, George Davison.
The brewing industry's recently seen incredible innovations, transforming how beer is made and enjoyed. But tradition dates back thousands of years. You see, it all began with ancient civilizations like the Sumerians and the Egyptians, who brewed beer in clay pots using simple techniques and natural ingredients. Now, if you fast forward to the Middle Ages, when monks refined their brewing methods, beer became an essential part of life in European monasteries. Today, though, beer has evolved dramatically with high-tech breweries and advanced brewing techniques. Now, as we look toward the future, we see that the rise of craft brewing has spurred creativity, leading to unique brews and flavor combinations we may have never imagined. You see, the science of how flavors are explored and brought to life in laboratories offers us a chance to see and taste a piece of that future. The creative process behind beer brewing, marketing, and flavoring is truly an art form, and it involves a blend of science, tradition, and innovation. From experimenting with unique ingredients and brewing techniques to crafting compelling brand stories and designing eye-catching packaging, every single step reflects a dedication to craft and creativity. So I'm gonna send Greg to the world of production to explore the innovative spirit and creative journey behind one company's seasonal beers. Stay tuned as we take you behind the scenes of the brewing process, where every sip tells a story.
From innovative brewing techniques to renewable energy solutions, breweries are having a positive impact on the environment and crafting some unique and delicious beers. I'm at the Elysian Brewing headquarters in Seattle, Washington, to explore how one particular beer has brewed up a community festival with its roots in sustainability. Let's head inside now. We're going to talk with Joe Basaka and Dave Bueller, the founders of Elysian Brewing. Hi, Joe.
Hey, how are you?
Great, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, Joe, I am curious to find out about the beginnings of Elysian. What inspired you to create this whole brewing company?
So I was a home brewer. My partner Dick was a brewer over at Pike Place Brewery. Dave was a beer sales guy. And all of us loved beer and kind of wanted to do it on our own. Came from love of beer, which I think most breweries kind of started the same way. For us, I think it was that opportunity to explore a little further, to break the boundaries, to kind of try some things people haven't tried before. It just sounded fun.
Right, and that's one of the things that Elysian is known for. Like you brought a lot of groundbreaking beers and flavors to the market.
For me, brewing is like baseball. If you strike out 70% of the time, you're an all-star, one of the best in the biz. That opportunity to invent something new, to kind of create some new beers, some new styles and things, that was huge for us. That lack of fear to try new things, to explore a little bit. You may fail, but you learn from it.
Right, do you think that's one of the things that has really helped with the evolution of the company, that attitude?
Absolutely. Not only in the beers that we brew, but also graphically. We've always had internal artists create all our stuff, so try to inspire art as much as we inspire beer with the whole thing. You know, events too.
Right, which is one of the main things I'm here to learn about today,
Sure.
Which is the Great Pumpkin Beer Festival. So I'm gonna head downstairs. David's down there, and he's gonna tell me all about the actual creation of the pumpkin beer.
He's right down here.
Okay. Hey, David.
Hi, Greg.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
So this is the perfect setting for me to ask a question that's just been burning in my head. What prompted you to create a pumpkin beer in the first place?
Well, in the late 90s, we had opened a second location, and we had a small pilot brewery. Our assistant brewer, Marcus, decided, I'm going to brew a pumpkin beer. And no one said, don't do that. So we brewed our first beer using the type of pumpkin meat that you would buy in the store. And we brewed 4 barrels, which is 31 gallons per barrel, so 124 gallons of pumpkin beer. That was year one. Put the beer on tap at our pub. People loved it. Year 2, we did double the amount. We took it to a beer festival. We had a line really long, sold out of the beer really fast. So the next year we took it up to our main brewery. At that point was a 20-barrel system, so 5-fold growth, and that's the beginning.
Wow, and now you actually brew different varieties of the pumpkin beers, not just the one that you started with.
Well, batch 1000 ended up being the Great Pumpkin. So we needed to brew something special. And once again, Marcus, when I said it's batch 1000, what do you want to brew? And he said double Night Owl. So having now 2 pumpkin beers started the ability to do more. And we were already doing festivals. We were doing a winter beer festival, a Belgian festival. So we did a pumpkin beer festival.
What were some of the biggest challenges in creating a beer like this? Because that was really new at the time.
Well, in the beginning, we were buying pumpkin meat from the store. We were going like you would buy pumpkin meat in a can for your pie. We now use 75,000 pounds of pumpkin puree per year. So we contract out to farmers years in advance. So the supply chain side of it has gotten more intense, but it's still working with farmers, and we love to do that.
Wow, so as all of this has grown, now you even have the festival around it.
The festival has grown the same way, organically, serendipitously, and it is huge. Thousands of people, lots of beers, lots of harvest beers. It's kind of pumpkin mayhem.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to go find out more about that mayhem from Dano, your cellar master. Thanks a lot, David.
You're welcome. Cheers.
I'm talking to cellar master Dano Beyer at Elysian Brewing about their Great Pumpkin Beer Festival.
So Dano, let's go back a little bit. Tell me a little bit about the history of the Great Pumpkin Beer Festival. You were there basically from the very beginning.
Yeah, I was there for the first one. We had 4 pumpkin beers, and that was already kind of ridiculous. So we invited 4 friends breweries, and that first festival was just 8 beers. And then the boss was like, figure out how to put this beer in a pumpkin. So we've done that since the first year.
Tell me about that evolution. How has that process taken place?
Well, I mean, it's just grown. We've taken it from, inside the restaurant, out to the loading dock, out to part of the parking lot, the whole parking lot, and now we host it at the Seattle Center.
Wow, and the pumpkins have grown as well.
Yep, I'll be filling a pumpkin anywhere between 1,500 and 1,700 pounds this year.
Are you surprised that a pumpkin can hold that much beer?
I've always had great faith in the structural integrity of a pumpkin.
Wow, well, tell me a little bit more about the evolution of the festival itself. To grow that much, there's got to be a lot more involved than just beer.
Yeah, I mean, now our spent grain farmers show up and have an info booth. We have other vendors and other beverages available.
So there must be a bigger opportunity then for community engagement.
In the last several years, we've always been involved with nonprofit. This year, it's presented by the Vera Project.
What do you think sets the Great Pumpkin Beer Festival apart from other festivals?
I mean, definitely the harvest vibe. It's a very themed event. Having such a centerpiece like a giant pumpkin full of beer that's everyone's waiting with anticipation to tap.
Excellent. Okay, let's get on out of here.
Cheers.
Next, I met with Innovation Brewmaster Chris Murakami to discuss the brewing process.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So, Chris, walk me through the basics of a brewing process.
Absolutely. Yeah, we all start with malted grain, so it's either malted barley or malted wheat traditionally. That goes through our mill, which is right behind us. That cracks the grain open, and then it drops into our mash tun, which is right behind us. This is where we mix it with water. We keep it at a nice warm temperature. And this is kind of the key process that I think separates brewing from a lot of other alcohol fermentations, where you're keeping it at a perfect temperature, time, hydration rate, that the enzymes that naturally occur in that malt break the starch down to sugar, and that sugar is what eventually our yeast will consume and turn into alcohol and carbon dioxide.
So if you were making wine or making a cider, those already have sugars in them from the fruits that you're using. With this, you're making the sugars from scratch.
Correct, yeah. You have apples, which already have sugar in them. You have your grapes, so you basically just crush it, get the juice out. You can add yeast, and then you're off to the races. But with beer, we have again, the malted grain. It's all in starch. It's kind of entwined sugars, if you will. They're really all locked up and bound to each other. And so again, the process of mashing is to basically free up those sugars, break them apart, make them accessible for our yeast to consume.
Now, when you make a flavored beer, say, because we're talking a lot about your pumpkin beer, all of those are natural ingredients as well.
That's right, yeah. Whenever possible, source natural fruits or vegetables or whatever we're going to put into our beer. And so pumpkin beer is no different. We get pumpkin puree, and it's grown down in Corvallis, Oregon. We get a pumpkin juice concentrate that comes from eastern Washington here. Our malt's actually made down in Vancouver, Washington. So a lot of our ingredients are coming from local sources, as well as we're trying to source the natural fruit anytime it's possible and avoid kind of chemicals or essences when possible.
As you work through your brewing process here with Elysian, how much of this is, in your estimation, traditional brewing, and what's new? What's the innovations that you're using?
Well, really, brewing has changed surprisingly little over the thousands of years that's existed. So again, we're pretty much using the same 4 ingredients, of course, when we innovate and do pumpkin beers or something like that. But the process has really remained unchanged. What has changed is the technology that's allowed us to brew more efficiently, more consistent, and sustainably. So, for example, heating beer, or heating the wort, I should say, to make beer, has been around since the beginning of brewing. That's what's made it safe to drink for thousands of years and made beer a very safe product. We're just using a steam kettle. We're not using chemicals to have to add to kill any pathogens or any harmful bacteria that might be already present in the water or our ingredients.
Great. Well, I know that you have some other innovations that are a part of your bottling and packaging process. So can we go take a look at that?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right.
All right, Greg, I'd like to show you one more thing before we hit packaging here. I'd like to introduce you to our quality manager. This is Morgan Hazard.
Hi, Morgan.
Hi, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Looks like you're having a good time here.
We're sampling grape pumpkin. This is our final sensory before packaging.
I'm excited. So tell me what's going on in this vat.
Well, Greg, these are our bright tanks. So basically it's finished beer. It's already been fermented, clarified, and carbonated. Now it's really just waiting for packaging.
So there's no process going on in here. This is all just getting ready to head out to the bottling and packaging center.
As you'll notice, this red line, this hose that's coming out from underneath is going to our keg line, and that's what we'll be heading to next.
Now this is all beer that is ready to drink.
That's
Ready to
correct,
drink.
which brings us to our next
So
one.
we're ready to drink it. All right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The most important step, right?
The most important.
And this is actually great pumpkin beer.
Correct.
This is grape pumpkin.
This is one of our beer. Our pumpkin beers. It's an imperial pumpkin beer. Clocks in at 8.4%, but again, tons of pumpkin, lots of
Right.
natural spice.
Well, cheers.
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 That is like fall in a glass. I'm discussing Elysian Brewing's bottling and canning process with Morgan Hazard, Quality Assurance Manager. So Morgan, what do you think is the most important thing to be aware of when you're in the bottling and canning process?
Reducing the amount of dissolved oxygen in our beer.
Well, how do you do that?
Both the bottle and can line utilize counter pressure filling, which purges the can or bottle with CO2, pushes oxygen out, and then fills with beer.
So, well, why is that so important? I mean, there's oxygen everywhere.
Well, it reduces our shelf life and causes the beer to taste old and oxidized.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Well, I mean, I'm amazed at how much science is really involved in the brewing of beer, and I'd like to get a little bit more specific about it, maybe look at pumpkin beer in particular.
Yeah, let's go over to the pilot brewery where we're actually brewing a pumpkin beer right now.
Lead the way.
All right. Well, Greg, I'd like to welcome you to our pilot brewery here. This is our one-barrel innovation system. So it's the smallest brewery that Elysian runs, but it's where we experiment with a lot of new recipes and ingredients.
So you get inspiration from just about anywhere, like a lot of employee inspiration as well. And this is where you try that out. What's Brian working on right now?
Brian is actually making a pumpkin beer for us right now called Absolutely Chuffed, and it's kind of loosely inspired by a cake recipe actually he saw on TV.
All right. Now, but Morgan, you actually have a recipe that's going to be brewed for Pumpkin Fest as well. Tell me about that.
It's called Porter Pie, and it's a pecan tassie-inspired beer named after my daughter, who's nicknamed Porter Pie.
Wow, that's excellent. Now, there's a lot of science involved here. What are some of the different disciplines that come into play in the brewing process?
So we've got microbiology, chemistry, food science, and that's just the short list.
Now, say this recipe of yours is gangbusters. Everybody at Pumpkin Fest loves it. Now you want to scale that up into production. You need to get that into all of your pubs and your regular distribution system. What do you do to make that happen?
Well, we're going to first look at things like consumer feedback, rate of sale at our pubs, kind of employee enthusiasm, and does this fit in with Elysian's portfolio? If it meets all these metrics, then we'll take that recipe, we'll start working on scaling. But the biggest thing we got to look at is, are the raw materials sustainable? Can we actually provide raw materials for this for years to come if this recipe actually does scale?
So you have to deal with all of your suppliers, including local farmers and the folks that you work with in the community, to make sure that you can make that happen. Well, I want to find out more about that. I know you've got to go.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with your pumpkin beer. I'm sure it'll be a big hit. Let's get on out of here.
All right, let's go.
So Chris, you mentioned using local sources for your raw materials, and these are them.
That's right. These are some of them. Yeah, this is a lot of our malt. In fact, a lot of our malt that we use here at the brewing process is malted in Washington. Of course, Washington is known as a huge hop growing region too, so we're extremely fortunate. It's just right over the mountains in eastern Washington. I mentioned that our pumpkin for our pumpkin beers is grown down in Corvallis, Oregon. So really a lot of our raw materials are coming from within the state or one state away, and that really helps reduce our carbon footprint in terms of shipping our raw materials to us.
And that's really just a function of where you're located geographically.
That's right.
Now, I've heard about this concept called circular brewing. Explain that to me.
Yeah, we have a very cool partnership here. Essentially, our spent grain is sent to a dairy farm here, and that's fed to the dairy cattle. Of course, that becomes manure, and then that is eventually turned into compost. And that compost is actually used by some local farmers here to grow these giant pumpkins that we feature at the Great Pumpkin Beer Festival. And we take a couple of those giant pumpkins, cut them open, and fill them with beer. So it's a really great way to reduce waste and work with local farmers and partners here in the area. In fact, Leanne Kranick, who runs the Kranick Dairy, is here, and you're going to meet her now.
Great. So Leanne, tell me a little bit about your partnership with Elysian Brewing.
We have a dairy farm about 35 miles southeast of here, and we collect all of Elysian's spent grain and yeast, and we take it home and we feed it to our cows.
Wow, now this would typically be waste, but you're making a really good use of it.
Exactly. And as you learned in the brewing process, Greg, they take all the starch and the carbohydrates to make beer, but what's left over is spent grain, and it's 20% protein. There's one other thing in here, and that's yeast. And because cows have a four-chambered stomach, yeast acts as a probiotic, and so it helps them digest their nutrients.
That's excellent. Now, let's talk a little bit more specifically about the Great Pumpkin Beer Festival. That's kind of why we're here today. Do the cows get to enjoy the festival?
They really do, but they enjoy it the day after. So after the festival, we bring home all the giant pumpkins and we put them out in the field, and the cows get to enjoy them as a treat.
So it's a win-win for everybody, including the cows.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I'm heading off now to talk to Keen Mervis. He is the president of Elysian Brewing, to talk more about community engagement around the festival and how everybody wins.
Great.
I'm talking to Elysian Brewing President Keen Mervis to explore how brewing is a circular process. Hey, Keen.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great, man. This has been a really good day.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out and spending time with my team and telling the story of Elysian. I've heard nothing but great things about the conversations you guys had.
Yeah, everybody has been really awesome today. And I was just speaking to Leanne, and she was telling me about how Elysian has partnered with her dairy farm and how beneficial that has been for both of you, especially in the concept of the circular brewing concept that's so important to you. Now, when it comes to that kind of community engagement and getting involved with the folks in this area, how important is that to you?
Creating a sense of belonging is something that's super important to everything we do at Elysian. And Pumpkin Fest is an amazing example of that. We've had the pleasure of growing it from a small brew pub event all the way to a 7,000 person event down in the middle of the city at the Seattle Center under the Space Needle.
I was talking to Dano earlier, and he was saying he's been around for the Pumpkin Fest from the very beginning. Now, he's not the only employee that you guys have that's been here for a couple of decades.
Yeah, Dano's not the only one. Of course, our founders, who you've met so far, have been here for our entire 28-year history, but several employees have been here for over 20 years. And that sense of community is something that we believe is really important to everything that we do, and we believe it rubs off on events like Great Pumpkin Beer Fest or on the beers that our consumers are enjoying across the U.S.
Absolutely, that's excellent. Well, I've got to get back to Pittsburgh, and I guess you're heading that way too, because you're going to hook up with George at Invention Land. So
yeah, I am.
Let's get out of here.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, Keen, welcome to Invention Land.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here.
Well, hey, what a great team you have. They sent me these pictures, and I thought, I have a lot of questions about this because I think it's some kind of kitchen, is it?
Yeah, this is like our kitchen. It's an innovation experimental brewing system that we use to work on some of our innovations. And you can see here, Brian has some samples out in the front here where he's testing different parts of the brewing process throughout the day to make sure that we're hitting our specifications.
Interesting. All right, so you have an R&D kitchen. How about this one? Because that vessel in the middle caught my attention. I'm just curious, what's going on here?
Yeah, so Danho and Brian are getting ready to add some ingredients to some of our secret recipes that we unveil at Pumpkin Fest.
So you're not gonna let me know what's going on in there?
Sorry, you'll have to come to the festival to find out what they are.
All right, so then share with me what you think is gonna happen to the brewing industry, let's say, in tomorrow's world.
For us to be ready for tomorrow's world in brewing, we need to listen to our consumers and make sure that we're brewing the right beers that they want to drink in the future. And we need to invest in the circular brewing process to make sure that we hit our sustainability goals.
Sustainability goals, I like that. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. And that's another edition of Tomorrow's World Today. So, Keen, you want to check out some more innovation in Invention Land?
Yeah, let's do it.
And remember, tomorrow's world is where inspiration and creation drives innovation in production.